I'll tell you where I see the future of e-commerce. It's all going to be influencers who have brands. Advertising is getting a lot more competitive. People buy from people that they like. Let's say two types of influencers. There's the girl who posts her bikini photos every day. And then there's the other girl who does skincare routines and everything else. And 80% of her followers are women. They trust her, they believe in her. So when she decides to come out with a product that's hers, people are going to buy it. You need to be comfortable in being uncomfortable and not knowing everything. And you need to want to just commercialize and get some runs on the board, get that feedback, and then turn that into that next version. If you're not embarrassed of your first version of your product, you've launched too late. It's like there's challenges every week. We've got 150 active clients. The difference is I don't expect things to go perfect. And when they do, that's fucking great.
That's insane.
And as a leader, you need to set that tone, right? You need to show people that it's okay.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode. With me here today, the co-founder and CEO of Sourci, top 100 young entrepreneur and 2022 young entrepreneur in the manufacturing and distribution category. We nailed it.
Nailed it.
So just off camera, I was literally just like, okay, this is like your introduction. Are you happy with it? And then I started reading it out and we completely ballsed it like 3 times, but we got there.
You got 90% of the way there about 3 times. Distribution. Sounds good when you say it all together though, doesn't it?
Bloody hell, that's why I'm so proud of myself. I feel like we got there. But Jared, thank you, man.
Thanks for coming.
How you been? It's been a long time since I last saw you.
How long's it been? About 6 months?
Yeah, I think probably even more.
Catching up, yeah.
It's probably about 12 months.
12 months, a lot happens in 12 months. I think I've been good. I mean, 12 months, there's been some good times, some bad times. I think right now, coming out of New Year's and setting some really good goals for this year, it's got me feeling good. I've gone away to a wellness retreat recently as well. Eden, have you ever heard of Eden?
No.
It's in the Currumbin Valley. It used to be called Camp Eden. It's where they used to do The Biggest Loser.
Okay.
You go there for like 4 or 5 days. No phone, no coffee, no alcohol. They wake you up at 6 a.m. You go into activities all day, meditation, sound bowl healing. They cook all your food locally from naturally sourced ingredients.
No way.
It's the best thing in the world.
Okay.
You realise how much your body needs to flush all the toxins out until you get there.
When do they do this?
Every week.
You're kidding?
Yeah, every week. I've gone twice. It's insane.
What's how can someone find this? Like, what's the address?
You just Google Eden Retreat.
Okay, Eden Retreat. Okay, I'm definitely going to do that.
Do it. Do you think you do a week without the phone and the?
Yeah, I'm.
Are you a coffee drinker?
Yes, I smash it, but I think it's something that is definitely needed. Like, man, the last couple of months I've been going and doing yoga. And
that's awesome.
It's actually probably been the best thing that for me.
Just down the road? I saw the one on the way here.
Yeah, and I go to one in Northgate in Collingwood. Like they've got 2 good vibes, and it's actually insane. Like for me, I didn't realize like how good it was. Like, and I'm sure you go through the same thing. 100%. It's like, man, like your head's just completely filled with shit, and like there's so much going on. You're going left, you're going right. It's just we live in a busy world.
Yeah, and
then you go in this place. And like for an hour, it's just...
Nothing else exists. You got to slow down.
It's insane.
And it's, in a way, it's like our personality types, like we want to live that busy life, right? It's like I'm not a victim of it. It's just, I love it. But then you realize how much you need to slow down sometimes and how good a bit of a reset is. Like the point of Eden is they teach you things that you can take home with you. So some nights during the sessions, there will be someone who'll come out and teach you breath work or a meditation or gratitude, right? And the purpose is not to fix yourself in 4 days, but it's to put yourself in the right path so that when you leave there, you don't, because you know what it's like, right? You do your yoga, but you leave straight away and you pick up your phone. Yeah. You got 10 missed calls and you're just back onto it as well.
Sometimes in the change room, I'm looking and I'm like,
exactly
no, I don't want to get in the car first.
Exactly
right. Just a junk. Like
you don't realize that, like, even like I'm a sucker for carrying my phone in my hand everywhere. Yeah. And it's like when you're there, there's no reception. So it's like you can have it, but it doesn't fucking do anything besides tell the time. So you like learn to like put your phone down and leave it in a room, and it kind of becomes surreal to like realize how much you depend on having that stuff on you as well.
When you're telling me this, like things that are going through my head is like, oh my God, 5 days. Like what's going to happen with the business? Like what's going to happen with life? Like imagine like this and that. Like that's what's going through my head. First reaction.
Really?
Yeah, like...
Mine's the opposite. I'm like, let's see what happens. Let's see how people go without us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I guarantee you probably walked out and nothing really happened. Like a few little things like...
I think it's good because you end up empowering people a little bit and you kind of show them that you trust them, you know? I don't want to have a business... I've gone through waves, right? I used to be not hands off, but I hired a lot of management and I separated myself from the business in some ways. And that was a huge mistake. But then when I removed them because things weren't working, I became like overbearing in some ways. Like I was in everything, in a good way, right? Because you need to know what's happening within your business more than anyone else. Yeah. But then you need to find that balance of like allowing people to do their role. And my management style is I don't want to be hands-on. I don't like micromanaging. I think like there's a lot of respect and integrity. And one of our values is integrity. And I don't want people to feel like they need to tell me what they're doing all the time because I would fucking hate that myself. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go.
All right. I just want to make sure. I would hate that myself. I want to show people trust, and you kind of know when someone's doing good or they're not, right? You can tell by their outcomes, their performance, what other people say about them. So yeah, like I like kind of going away and letting people step up and kind of proving to me when I get back of how well that they've done as well.
That's crazy. And at the end of the day, like performance, even if they get away with it for a couple of weeks or something, like give it a 3 to 6 month time frame, like everyone's always going to get caught out anyway.
That's probably like the last 6 months what I've learned a lot about, which is I realize I've got a mentor and he's a superstar and he's already taught me a lot. But one of the first things we started on was creating a visibility and accountability within the business. And I realized how I didn't have that before, right? Because people would tell me everything's going well. And then all of a sudden, a customer will complain. I'll be like, but people are saying things are going well. How can the customer not be happy? And you realize that people will tell you what they want to tell you for their own benefit, right? Yeah. And I know this sounds really naive when I look back at it, but just because you put trust and have integrity into people doesn't mean that you're going to get back. So one of the things that we learned was to create proper visibility in the business, you need to have the right systems and processes. And then, doing something small like randomly calling your clients and asking how the experience is versus the notes that are left in the system. And then all of a sudden, if they don't match up, you say, hey, you've left a note, because every week we do a whip. That's when we leave our notes for our clients and say what's happening in the project. And if they don't align to what the client's telling me, then we've got a problem with integrity. And when you have your values really set, it becomes the easiest conversation, right? Our value is integrity. You're telling me that the client's having a great experience. The client's telling me that they're not. You're not living our values. Right? So that's how we create the visibility and accountability in the business, where before I was lost. Someone would tell me everything's good. I'll speak to the client. The client's saying it's not good. The notes didn't match, but I didn't know how to kind of see through it all and to kind of hold people accountable. And that's probably been the biggest thing in the last 6 months that's changed within the business as well. That's insane. Creating that visibility and accountability where, I can step back a bit now, but I can at any point know exactly what's happening in the business or how someone's performing by making a few phone calls and checking our notes in our system.
That's wild. How have you been finding it as well with Ali, who is the co-founder and he's the COO? How have you guys found bouncing with each other?
So Ali's actually moved into another role because there's so much shit outside of Sourci that we're doing now. Like we're in our 5th year and in the last 12 months we've started like 4 businesses or 3 businesses. And Ali and I sat down. It was kind of like a really awkward, hard conversation for me in my head about saying, hey, well, who does what? You know what I mean? Like I've got so much respect for solo founders because it's so hard to get to that level without, I need someone to work with and to call 10 times a day and say, hey, what do you think of this? But also it becomes really hard when then saying, well, this is what I want to do. What are you going to do? And separating that side. But it was really easy because we realized that Ali's strengths is like you've met him, great people person, makes shit happen, knows how to bring a deal together, sees opportunities a lot better than I do. Like that's his skill. He sees diamonds everywhere and I can't. I just think I'm like, that stinks, stay away. But so his role's moved into almost like he sets up our new businesses and finds all our partnerships. And the last 12 months, like I said, we've started a company called Procon, and that's just over a year old now. So that business is a building and construction material supply company. Yeah. Really, we save builders like 15 to 20% on things like windows, flooring, cabinetry. We're really starting to take off now. We're starting to work with like some tier 2, tier 3 builders. And we recently did a package of just over $1 million, but we ended up saving the builder like $200,000-300,000 in one project. And the difference is, like, if you look at that industry of like a window supplier or timber floor supplier, they're really old school businesses. And they give shit service because they don't need the work. They've been doing it for like 30 years. Yeah. They've got all their relationships.
Yeah, they've got enough. They're hitting the numbers.
Ali did this thing. He actually called like 6 window companies and tried to get a quote, and only 2 of them got back to him after 2 weeks. So that's our competition.
Wow.
So it's like, as long as we give really great service, we get so many referrals. So he's just like leading that 24/7. He's a big part of that as well. And we've got a few other ones in construction building material supplies as well. So,
so that is very similar to Sourci.
In a way, yeah. It's just really niche focused, right?
Okay,
like we're just doing those 3 products where Sourci, it's evolved so much from, we did fucking everything for everyone. And that was the biggest mistake. And that's the easiest way to lose money. You know, jack of all trades is the master of none.
When you say, maybe provide some context. So
we're doing
e-commerce?
Yeah. No, so it was like, we're doing, it was e-commerce, but it was also like, we're doing like machinery at one point.
Yeah, okay.
Then we're doing like really complicated electronic products that take tons of work. And what we realized is, you know, you do need to have specialization, right? So what we did in the last 12 months, I know this is jumping around a little bit, but we...
No, it's good, man.
We figured out that our key categories were like apparel, beauty, wellness, homewares, and then packaging, right? So then what we did from there is we built pods around those categories. So we'd have, in apparel, for instance, which is our biggest category at the moment, we have a product manager, which is like your account manager.
Yep.
So that's your customer-facing role. Then we have a production manager, and this is someone who has, you know, 10 years of apparel experience. We've been able to recruit people who've worked at places like the Just Group, French Connection, Adidas, like really well-known brands, right? And they come with, you know, years and years of experience. And they're the ones that are responsible for dealing with the factories, dealing with our overseas team, the technical side of the product. And then from there, you have the researcher in China as well. And then who sits above them is our head of production, who is more senior, who understands production to another level as well. Where before, we used to have like one person do both sides, right? So we'd try to hire someone who's an expert in, well, maybe have apparel experience, but they don't know how to do project management, right? Yeah. They don't know how to communicate to a client well, and they get really overwhelmed by the customer-facing side. Yeah. You know, you're trying to find a unicorn who can do both sides, and we realized it didn't work. And then when you mix that with adding projects where it's not their specialization as well, or their background, they really start to struggle, right? Okay. And then the results aren't there. And, you know, for us, we weren't getting the outcomes we needed. Our clients weren't getting the outcomes that they needed as well.
Okay, that's interesting. So now have you just like dropped it to specialize in those categories and that's kind of it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Like we don't venture too much outside of that. And it works a lot better. Like we still get, you know, right now we have probably close to like 300 leads every month. And that's not including the ones that we filter out already who can't come and submit a lead from there. And we only work with about 10 to 15 clients out of that 300, right? Because it's like, there's so many things that need to align. It's like their budget, is it realistic? What are their timelines? Also, we try to now stay away from startups just from the lack of, and it's not their fault, it's just for us. When we take on a project, it's about 6 months worth of work, right? And we're now doing, we're now recording every hour in a project, but it's hundreds of hours, right? Yeah. So you want someone who's not going to come order once. You need someone who's got business acumen, who knows what they're doing, who they can come back multiple times, right? So we can get that return on investment. We had, probably like 6 months ago, we went through a stage of like, we just looked at our book of clients. We had about 300 and we just said, there's so many clients in here that aren't going to ever commercialize. It's been 8 months, sometimes over a year, and we're still just working. Sometimes it was like a year and a half. And things are just moving a little bit. And we just had to have some really honest conversations with them, give them some resources, set them up, hand them over to the suppliers and say like, it's for you to take on from here, because it just doesn't work when there's that many startups and small businesses and they're so unsure about moving forward. And you mix it with like right now, you're seeing interest rates, cost of living. Yeah. They're the first people to freak out, right? Because that business isn't their day-to-day business. It's their side hustle. It's what they want to eventually transition to. But as soon as it becomes a lot harder to picture it because, you know, your rent's gone up by $500 a month, or your mortgage has gone up, or your grocery bills has gone up, they start to drop off more and more. So if we invest 4 months of work into a client and it never commercializes, that's a huge loss for us as well.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe give people a bit of a background of like what Sourci is exactly.
Yep.
Just someone might be like probably never heard of it. What exactly do you guys do?
What do we do? So Sourci is an end-to-end sourcing and supply chain company. Yeah. Really what we do is we help brands develop and manufacture products overseas, and we manage the entire supply chain. So let's say you wanted to come to me and design or have your first range of apparel. You'd come to me and we can either design your tech packs for you, so we can do that service in-house, or you can come with them ready-made. From there, we would start providing some initial quotes and feasibility, so some pricing. And that pricing would be inclusive of the product, the packaging, the labeling, the shipping, our costs, all in one landed cost to you. So you go, yep, that looks great, that pricing works. And the truth is, because we have so many clients going through the same factories, our pricing is pretty competitive, right? So for someone to manage the workload for you and have all that expertise of, like I said, production managers of 10, 15 years of experience that are giving recommendations throughout the process, plus you're paying probably the same as what you would do if you went to a factory yourself, it's a bit of a no-brainer. So once we go through that phase of providing all the quotes, for apparel, for instance, we'll do a first round of samples. Then we'll do our fit comments. We'll provide feedback on the samples ourselves. Then we'll most likely do a second round of samples. Once you're happy with those, we move into production. We manage the suppliers. So we put in place things like sales contracts with the suppliers to make sure that we're meeting delivery times, quality standards. And then we perform QC or quality control checks as well. So we have our own team in the factory that will check the products as they're coming off the production line to make sure that they are as the sample that was first approved. Then we manage the freight, the shipping, the logistics. We can put into a fulfillment center. We can even introduce them to 3PL companies as well.
So pretty much A to Z, you got everything covered.
We don't do Facebook ads. We don't do marketing or anything like that. But anything that has to do with the development of a product, we definitely help with. And even now, in the last 6 months, we've brought in an in-house industrial designer. So we're at the point now of we're designing products, right? We're designing pieces of furniture. We're designing beauty products. We're designing beauty tools. So it can really be like when you're coming to us, the thing that's most important for someone who wants to reach out is you just need to have a strong understanding of what you want, right? And I know that might sound easy, but sometimes it's really hard because it can be conceptual in your head, but we can't help with kind of creating the idea, if that makes sense. Like you need to be able to say, I know what I want. I just need you guys to help me design it, create it, make it, deliver it to me as well.
How did you guys even come up with this concept? Because it seems like now that obviously you guys have done it, it's like, it's pretty straightforward. But like at the time, like how did it even come together?
Do you know what's funny? Like a year and a half into the business, I thought we invented this thing. Turns out there's many sourcing companies. It's been around for like 20 years, more like 100 years. Like I think the oldest one is like 110 years old. They're huge. But in my head, I'm like, I can't believe no one does this. I wrote the word Sourci. I'm like, look how good this is.
Yeah, it's a bloody crazy name. It's perfect, literally.
So it was one day I had a printing business before this, and it was a print management company. And before that, I actually worked in a printing company as my second ever job. I was a salesperson. And there was a print company called Banner Shop. And I think they're in Port Melbourne. I'm not sure if they're there. But they were Chinese owned, right? So, and this blew my mind. It's so funny. They used to have their organization chart on the wall and it would just be all these like Chinese names. I'm like, what kind of company is this? But it's like, everything leads back to like this big office manufacturing plant in China. And we'd have people call up, and I was a salesperson, so someone would order, let's say, 500 business cards, and you think that they're made locally, right? But they're being made in China in like 2 days, then flown in on a flight and then delivered to the customer, and they're cheaper than someone printing them locally.
Wow.
And that just blew my mind. I was like, they're turning this shit around in a week. They're printing banners, they're printing flags, business cards, all this stuff. It's getting done in like a week. I was like, wow, like that's crazy, right? Because you never think you're dealing with a printing company locally. So after a year of doing that, I almost got fired 3 times because I was shit at sales. I was awful at the start. I kept extending my probation, and then I just started smashing it. I actually set the records after a while, so I was like, ha. But after a year of doing that, I turned to the guy that I work with and I said, have you ever thought about doing this yourself? And he goes, yeah. 2 weeks later, we both resigned and we started Allied Print, which is my first business. And we did that for like 5 years. That was like a lifestyle business. It was, we didn't try to grow it. We never had staff. What we did was just focus on servicing marketing managers because they're so busy. We just took all their different print and said, you come through us, we'll set it all up, we'll take care of it all. But what we started to do then was, even though we knew that our old work used to buy from overseas, at the start, we were too scared. We were still buying our print products locally and we were paying more money. And we got to a point where we started bringing on some really big clients, and there was an opportunity to supply about 100 flags for a caravan dealership. And they're like $90 locally or $35 from some person I was speaking to on Alibaba. And I was like, shit, it's too, like, I'm like 21 or 22 at the time. This is like the difference is like 30 grand, which is all the money in the world when you're at that age. I was like, I'm rich if I can pull this off. And we end up ordering it, and I'm like, I don't know what she's saying. She's like, it's in USD, so I get the amount wrong because I didn't understand conversions at the time. And I'm just kind of battling my way through it. Anyway, it finally comes. And the box arrives to my house because we didn't even have an office. I remember just ripping it open, putting one in the backyard and like getting on my knees going, yes, it's right. And that was like the first experience of kind of going overseas. But, you know, we started then, you know, moving more into doing that. And we had some really good experiences and really good factories that we worked with. But then we worked with some companies that just like disappeared. Like we'd pay them money. I paid someone $10,000 to do mouse pads, showed me that they were done, and then she never sent the stock. So I was just like, this is like Wild West, right? And we went over there a few times, and we went over there thinking we're seeing factories, and all of a sudden we're in someone's office. It's actually a trading company. It's not a factory, so it's like a middleman.
Okay, so they're like channeling the channel, like this there. Okay.
Yes, and then eventually one day I'm like, fuck it, what would it look like if you could buy products overseas or manufacture a product overseas? You dealt with someone locally. It's transparent. There's no risk, and you have a really great experience. And that's what we started to build out from there. That's kind of like how it all started. And I turned to Ellie and I said, do you want to kind of get involved and do this with me? So yeah, that's kind of the
and then it just went.
And then it didn't just go. It was like 2 years of nothing.
Well, how did you get from the 2 years of nothing to now, obviously, like, I mean, growing extremely well.
We had to learn a lot. We were taking like Chinese culture classes at night to understand how business works and how things work over there. We're looking up Incoterms and freight terms. You know, it's not like this is, and I get this, right? Like if I was to start a business again, I'd find a business partner who was an expert in that industry.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for Ali, and I'd never change a thing, but you do see the value in having one person or both people who are experts, right?
Yeah.
Because Ali and I didn't have supply chain background. I thought I knew how manufacturing works because I bought products overseas.
Yeah.
No, not even close. And Ali's a great salesperson. He's an entrepreneur, but he's also not someone who understands production, supply chain, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So for us, it was trying to learn. Like we were just Googling shit and reading and trying to understand how supply chain works. And if you look at it, right, supply chain is such an old industry, and there's very little, I guess, it's not like you can, you know when overnight everyone became a Facebook ads person and they were running their agency?
Yeah.
Because you can go online, you can learn from these courses, everything else, right?
Yeah.
We've got a course that teaches people how to source and manufacture products now, but there wasn't anything like that, right? So you're kind of like, it's this really ambiguous unknown, and it's every product's a bit different, every factory's a bit different. So it just took ages to wrap our head around just the process, right? And even now I feel like I've just gotten it, where when I thought I did, I was still miles away.
Yeah.
But so we spent the first year taking it really slow. We started bringing on a few clients, and we didn't want to overburden ourselves because you're kind of playing with someone else's money at the end of the day, right? They're putting all their trust into you. And if I don't have conviction that we're going to be able to deliver, it's a scary thought, right? Yeah. I'll give you a really good example. Like one of the moments where we knew we had a business, but one of the scariest moments as well was we had a school called Strathfield Say reach out to us, and it's just outside of Bendigo. And they said, hey, you know, we need some help. We want to source these whiteboard TVs for the classrooms, right? And these are pretty technical products, right? They're like almost like a giant iPad, and you have a whiteboard on them. And the school, anyway, so we start working together, and the school kind of, they come and see us. They eventually put their trust in us. We're able to source the product. We actually sourced a product that was better than what they originally had themselves, because they found one themselves. Anyway, so we get to the school. Ali and I actually hand deliver these TVs. We go meet the container, and the kids are running around like, yeah, TV. Jacked as shit, just, you know, losing their mind. We're like these cool dudes walking in. But it's really good. But when we were there, so that everything goes well, all the TVs work, it's all great. And when we're there, the principal sits down with us. She goes, you know, you don't know, but I actually sent my son to come and meet you undercover. And I said, is that right? She goes, yeah. She goes, what happened was we originally had one of our staff members, the IT staff member, go online and find a supplier who could do these TVs. And they bought one as a sample, and it was great. And they were about to order the rest of them for the classrooms. And the bank calls them and stops the payment and says, hey, you're actually just about to get scammed, right? So the principals from that point on really untrusting of, doing this. But the problem that they had was if they went and bought these TVs locally, they would only be able to afford one for every second classroom and not one for their main hall room.
Yeah.
With us, we were able to save them, I think it was like $60,000 or $80,000.
Wow.
They were able to put one in every single classroom. And we gave them like a 3-year warranty as well. So for us, it was such a good kind of like, there's something here, right? Because they were about to get scammed. We helped them and they didn't. They could only afford one in every second classroom if we didn't help them. We could help them put one in every classroom. And it was a really fulfilling kind of first project. That's what I mean when I'm saying at the start, we took it slow, because if that didn't go well, it would have changed the whole trajectory of our business, because we need to have conviction that we can deliver against what we do. So those first 2 years, just slow, working it all out. We immediately started focusing on having someone in China as a contact. And we built an office really slowly in Shenzhen. From there, I went off and learned Google Ads. That was my thing. I was like, I need to get an expert at this, because getting clients was the hardest part for us. We didn't know where to look. And eventually, I was able to get, I'd say, have a really good understanding. And that's when the clients started to kind of tick through, and you started to build that momentum, and you bring in enough clients on, you start being able to pay the bills, and then we started bringing on some staff. But, in even the first 2 years, we worked out of my house. We had like 4 people who would come to my house every day and work from there. And Ali and I didn't pay ourselves for the first 2.5 years of the business. We put everything we made back into hiring staff overseas, creating processes, trying to brand the business, trying to do marketing, learning what we can. So it was a really it was a grind. It was like, there were moments where I'd wake up in the morning, I'd get in the shower and be like, fuck. I'm like, do I tell him today I don't want to do it anymore? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it really got to that point, but we just both stuck it out and G'd each other up, and it just started to kind of work out.
What was like the tipping point? Like, what do you feel like, what turned, and was there like a specific moment where you're just like, okay, this is it, we're off to the races now?
There's probably 2. So the first one was a friend of mine works at a civil engineering company, and one day he gives me a call and he goes, my boss wants to meet you. So we went in there, and I was like, shit, yeah, like, he's going to give us some civil engineering work. No, he bought an apartment and he wanted to get these ants, these like big golden ants, to put all over the wall in the apartment. And I was like, fuck it, it's still work, honey. I'll take it. So he gave us a sample, and we get all these ants. We actually do a really good job. And then all of a sudden he goes, okay, well, now I have a project that's for Vic Roads, and it's structural steel, it's a sound barrier wall. And again, we knew nothing about steel and Vic Roads or anything like that. But I was like, shit, like my biggest thing, and I'm still glad that I do it, is I just say yes. Yeah. And I'll work it out after. Correct. And if I don't, it will all be okay. Anyway. Correct. I'll never get to a point where I'm really in the shit and I can't. Oh, there was one time that was close. That's the next story. Yeah. But in this one, I was just like, yeah, let's do it. And lucky enough, so the way it works with Vic Roads is there needs to be a certain level of, only 2 companies in the world can test the product and watch the product be galvanized to make sure it meets their standards. And lucky enough, when he told me what the 2 companies are, I actually called him and said, do you actually know any factories? And he recommended me to someone. And that was a big project. That was like $250,000. Had like enough margin in it for us. So it was a big win, right? And we took that money, and that's what gave us the confidence to go get an office. And we moved to an office in South Yarra on Yarra Street. And by then there's probably like 6 of us in total. Ali and I are going in there on the weekends, we're painting walls, everything's looking good. And then all of a sudden the news starts to talk about something called COVID-19 or coronavirus. And we're sitting there going, shit, is this good or bad? And the weekend that we move into our office, so our office on Yarra Street, it overlooks the station. And the week before, as we're moving in, there's people there, everything's all normal. And then over the weekend, Dan Andrews announces lockdown, and the day, like legit the first fucking day we're in that office, there's no one at the station. There's no one anywhere. Ali and I are sitting there going, okay, what now? But what happened next was, because we were running all those ads, we started getting inquiries for like hand sanitizer, masks, medical equipment. And then in one weekend, we sold like $500,000 worth of sanitizer. And we were just like, that's it, we've made it. Like, again, there's levels to all this. You're like, yeah, that's, everyone just high-fiving, like, fuck yeah, we made good money. Everything's going to be all good now. But then the inquiry starts to change. It starts going from $500,000 of sanitizer to $5 million worth of masks, or $50 million worth of gowns or 1 billion units of gloves. And what happened was, and this is kind of the second thing that elevated us, right? So the first thing was we got that big steel project that got us into the office, got our confidence up. And then the second thing that happened was what happened was with the pandemic, a lot of healthcare companies that were already, let's say, importing masks, they have relationships with the government, right? And what happens during a pandemic is the government doesn't put stuff out to tender. They go to their preferred people because they have the Emergency Act, whatever it is, and they can just award people tenders, right? Yeah. So these healthcare companies work in the government, they'll go get a contract for 50 million masks to put into the national stockpile, and then they'll go back to their supplier, and the supplier's going to say, hey, sorry, because the rest of the world's going through the same thing. So these suppliers are getting people like the ambassador of Ecuador showing up to their factory saying, I need to buy your supply chain for the next 6 months. So these traditional suppliers that they maybe have worked with for 10 years, they don't have capacity to take on these orders. So they started coming to us. So we had 50-year-old healthcare companies that are working with the government coming to us saying, can you please help us find and source manufacture masks?
That's insane.
It was, right? Yeah. And the benefit that we had was we actually had a team in China. We had resources there where these companies didn't. Yeah. So we started sending all our teams overseas. Every night they would travel to factories till like 2 a.m, trying to see who had availability, who had the right certification, who could buy the right raw materials. And in that 3-month period, we became fucking experts. Like I had a consultant come and talk to me almost every day about bacterial filtration efficiency, the difference between a KN95 and an N95, where you buy raw materials, how you test raw materials. And for us, it was like not only was it like, we ended up doing like multiple 8 figures in about 3 months' time. And we supplied, I think it was like 15 million masks or 20 million masks. Some crazy numbers, right?
Fucking wild.
But also, our test results on our masks were the highest performing out of anyone in the national stockpile because we knew exactly what we were doing. We were going to factories, buying the raw material, we were having someone watch them produce on the production line. Every 2 hours, we'd take a sample, we'd take that at the end of the day to a third-party testing facility. If it didn't hit the right filtration efficiency, we'd reject the stock and then we'd have to remake it. So we knew that everything that was sent from us was 100%.
Top-notch.
Yeah. So not only was it like, did we financially grow from it, but I think it kind of just like at that point, we were messing around with startups. We were playing down here. And there's nothing wrong with it, but like it just opened our eyes up that, we were the go-to and we delivered against it as well. So it really kind of made us level up through the process of doing that as well.
Bloody oath.
Yeah.
Man, that's wild. How were you finding like that period? Like, was it just
stress? Stress. I remember I was still living with like my housemates at that time, and I'd be sitting there in my bed at like 2 a.m. on the phone to like on a Google Meet to these American dudes, these VC guys, and I'd be like closing my eyes, falling asleep, and then I'd wake up the next morning having nightmares about masks. And it was a little bit touch and go because this is probably not the naughty part, but the part where, I say, just say yes. This company reached out to us and they're like, can you supply this mask? And they said, this is the price, this is the quality we need. And I went and got a quote and I was like, yep. And he goes, come to my office. And it's a big, I won't say who they are, but it's a really big, well-known company. And this is during the lockdown, so I'm driving like illegally through the city. And I get there and it's the most beautiful office in the middle of the city. And he sits on one side of the longest boardroom I've ever seen, and I sit on the other. And he's like, so you can definitely deliver. Tell me about this, tell me about that. And I'm just going, yep, all good. And at that point, I knew I didn't have a supply. I didn't have anything in place, but I knew I could go and do it from that point on. I just wanted to get it. And by the time I traveled from the office back to my office, they transferred like $4 million. Wow. And I was like, fuck. It's real. It's real now.
This is real.
But we have you seen the movie War Dogs?
No. Yes, I have. Yes.
It's a little bit like that. Just make it work.
But they go to Russia?
Exactly right. It's a little bit like that. But yeah, I was just like, fuck. So yeah, so that was like that first kind of moment of like, now we're going to go off and deliver. But that's me as a person. I'm happy to take risks, like, all within reason. But I knew that worst case we couldn't deliver it, I'd give the money back. But we ended up not only delivering it, but doing the best out of anyone.
When you say like taking risks, obviously that's big, but generally, like, are you always like just like, fuck it, we're gonna try this, we're gonna do that, And is Ali on the other end like no, like how does it generally play out?
I think I've corrupted him a little bit more. Yeah. He's happier to take more risks. I think, like I said, it's contradictory because like I said at the start when I was talking about other people's money and that school, it's all within what I think like, that level of integrity inside to know like what is the risk itself. At that time, the risk would have been reputation loss if I had to give back the money, and that's an opportunity of where we would have missed out. But the bigger that we've gotten, the more processes, and you know what it is you become more rigid in some ways. And I think, my style was there's a lot of change that happens within sourcing. I'm always happy to try new things. And I think some people, they get uncomfortable in constant change in that environment. And same with risk, right? So I think where we take risk now is more outside of the business, if that makes sense. Like Sourci itself it's got its processes, it's got its systems. I've got amazing people working there. It's got a great culture. So the risk that now is like, starting these new business ventures or putting money into a startup, or it's more that other stuff that kind of sits outside the company. It's like it's almost set up in a way where I can't really do too much.
Fair. No, that makes sense. So even with these new companies that you've started, are you putting like a lot of your focus into them, or because obviously they're babies that you have to build, but how are you?
So we've done it a bit different this time. So like with Procon, we've got a business partner named Sam, and he's like the general manager. So he runs that day to day. Yeah. Another business we have is called ProBoard. You can see a thing. Yeah. And it's a insulation fireproof panel. And they kind of go hand in hand.
Bloody oath.
But the way that business started was a guy named Cleve reached out to us. And this is LEC Diamonds, right? And Cleve's probably like, Cleve, if somehow you watch this, I love you. but when he came to the office, Cleve's a bit older. He's probably like 65, 70 years old. And LEC's saying like, this guy's just been burnt by his old business. Like he wants to try to do this again and everything else. I was like, no, man, like what is this? Like, it looks like a risk. Like but Cleve is a beast, and he kind of showed me that age is just a number. I was making the mistake within Sourci of I hired fucking everyone who was younger than me. It took me a really long time to break that habit of starting to hire people that are more senior. And I don't know if that was my insecurities of like, having someone older work for me was a weird relationship in some ways. Does that make sense?
It does. Because even with me at Collins, like kind of everyone that I have hired in the past has kind of been younger than me. And it's interesting. I think when I was making those moves, I'll just use the real estate industry, for example. I always said, I want to be like the young guys on the block. And even I was maybe a little bit insecure of like, the older guys probably wouldn't come. They're not going to fit our style or something.
100%. You go like, will they get it? The brand's young. Like the energy's young. Yeah. I've got people that are young that have just as much energy. My office manager, Mima, she bounces around the walls and she's like, 45, 50 years old. Yeah. But Cleve's a bit older, but we put him in place and he runs it. So we're at the point now where we're not trying to start businesses that take us. Yeah. It's like we're the people putting up the capital, for instance. Like, Procons probably cost us $500,000. ProBoards cost us maybe same or more. Yeah. And we're putting people in there. The other thing that we've got at the moment, which is really exciting, is we won the largest government grant last year to build a piece of supply chain technology using blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's called Mineral Link.
Wow. Okay.
And it's pretty much, so the government put out a proof of concept for someone to help build a piece of tech that helps protect the sovereignty of Australia, right? So what happened during COVID was there's a raw material called potash, and it's used as a fertilizer, and it usually comes out of Russia and Canada. And because of COVID-19, the supply chain was affected, and fertilizer is obviously used for our crops, and that's for our food, and that affects the sovereignty of Australia. So we put together a grant application. We won this grant, and we've put in about 9 figures into this. Not 9, sorry, 7 figures into this, and we're just completing our proof of concept. And now we're looking to raise capital through either VC or some sort of smart money as well. But that's going to be another business that spins off from Sourci as well.
So how does it work?
So it's pretty much picture a platform where buyers and sellers interact.
Yep.
So right now the way it works is there's a lot of spot contracts for these raw materials, but it's really kind of like the market price moves so much. Yeah. The contracts can be a bit dodgy as well. And it's really just hard for buyers and sellers to find each other. So this is a platform where if you're a buyer, you can go on and you can go buy spot contracts of raw materials and it will have the contracts built in on the back end of it as well. Nice. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And the industry is huge.
Wow. What made you guys go for that? Like,
we just saw the opportunity, and we had a relationship, but we still have a really good relationship with the person who wrote the grant for us. Yeah. You know how I said we moved in that office in Yarra Street? After 4 months or 5 months, because all that stuff happened, we ended up moving out of that office because we had so much, so many more team members, so much more revenue, so much more happening that we were just like, all right, we need to find a bigger space.
Your new office is amazing.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But we signed a 3-year lease, and during COVID, no one wanted to take on leases, especially at the price that we paid, because we paid pre-COVID lease.
Yeah.
So we're kind of stuck with this space, and we just gave it to a friend of mine, and he was actually the guy who wrote the grant application. So it's kind of like everything just kind of aligned, right? You do good things. And we said to him, he's like, I can't afford to pay for this office just yet. And I said, we'll figure it out later. And then 5 months later, he goes, this grant's come across. I didn't even ask him to do it. He goes, do you want to apply for it? And I said, yeah, why not? We really looked into it. He wrote it for us. It's the first ever grant we went for, and we won it.
Well done.
Yeah, it's amazing. And now it's this beast. We've got 5 or 6 staff members working within that alone. And we're just about to finish our proof of concept, and then we're going to move into commercialization of it as well.
Well done, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And even on top of that, you mentioned that you're doing the course, online course.
Yeah.
How have you been finding that? So that's an interesting one.
It was, do you know what? So, the reason we started Sourci was to help businesses, right? Yeah. And I didn't want to be biased to the size of the business. Yeah. But when we started to realize that we're losing money helping the startups, we can't keep going that way. But I didn't like the thought of not giving anyone the resources to help. So if we can't give them our services, what else can we do? Well, we can, most of the time, these smaller startups, they have time over money, right? Correct. Bigger businesses, they don't have time, they have the money.
Yeah.
So we thought about how can we teach them, right? So we designed the course out to take them through the entire process. We recorded all the modules. There's a lot of free resources in there. And probably the best thing that we did is we built this piece of AI software where if you type in a product into the search bar, it will index and search all these directories of different suppliers. It will look for different metrics that we've weighted based on our experience. So something like, are they certified? Where's the factory located? How many staff do they have? Do they have any patents? What's their MOQ? And then it'll present the top 5 suppliers based on their product. So not only have we been able to teach people how to go through the process of sourcing and manufacturing, but then we've given this piece of AI software that literally finds in the products as well. We use this tool ourselves sometimes to find suppliers. So we're really happy that even though we can't service those 300 clients, that some of them can still find a way to at least get the value of working without us. And then
100%.
Hopefully when they're big enough, they can come back and we can actually start developing products for them through our agency as well.
Well, even for startups, even for example, you might quote a startup and you might just be a little bit too much for what they want.
Exactly right. I've been there. Do you know what I mean? I've been there. I can't afford marketing companies at the start, and you're like, oh,
yeah, 100%.
You want it, but you can't afford it.
No, 100%. So that's actually, and I would assume there probably is, but there's probably not many out there that's just providing this value through an education course.
Not at all. And that's what I mean. If there was, don't get me wrong, we're not the first person to ever do it.
Of course.
But I think in the level of detail and how we go through it, if you look at a lot of e-com courses, right, sourcing is one module within it. So you know how Greta's got a course with Rails. Yeah. Those courses deliver so much value, right?
Yeah.
But the whole thing is how to set up a business, an e-commerce business. You're talking about one of the most critical parts of what you do, which takes 6 months worth of work, is one module within one lesson of a course, right? Yeah. Where really it needs to be its whole course, right? It needs to be its whole course. And we realize that. So it's we don't go oh, you jump on Alibaba and you find this. We tell people how to audit suppliers. We tell them how to put in place sales contracts. We tell them how to go through the process of working out what your true landed cost is, right? So you can make sure that you are profitable when you buy your product. All those little things, how to organize a freight quote. We want to go into the detail because people need to know that, I think.
How can someone purchase this?
sourci-ed.com.au is the URL.
I'm going to add it in the link because I actually think out of anything, this is amazing for somebody if they wanted to start. I'm putting myself in the shoes of a consumer. If I was wanting to start and I didn't know where to go, this would be insane.
Yeah, exactly right. And you think about the journey that a lot of people go on, like you need your product before you go open an e-commerce store. You're not going to design a website when you don't have the product to put into it. So we're trying to help people at the very start of their journey as well. And then we've got some bonus content modules as well to teach people about a bit about marketing, a bit about a few other things as well. So at least they can learn a little bit about the other stuff.
Nice. Even how did you find trying to teach yourself marketing? Like, were you focusing on just Google ads or?
I read a book. It was just one book. Okay. Really well. I can't remember what it's called, but it was just, you know, you've got to want to, I love numbers. I love data. Yeah. Like I love just looking at shit on a dashboard. Yeah.
Just fucking G's you up.
Just a good graph gets me going. So like, it's just a lot of trial and error. Like I would spend majority of my days at the start, you know, it's like you wear many hats. I was the marketing manager for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And I'd just sit there and all I'd focus on is how did these ads perform? How did that ad copy work? How did the website convert? You know, and we used to have a really ugly website, but it still spoke to people the right way. Yeah. So we just figured out how to get that to work, how to kind of get it to run a little bit. But then from there, like I didn't really do any other courses. I learned Facebook ads a little bit. We tried to, you know, when we were halfway through running Sourci, we actually tried to start a digital agency because we're like, oh, we can make money out of the same clients, but it's a whole other beast as well. Yeah. So yeah,
how did you find that? Like when you say a whole nother beast, like it was just...
It's this, well, you know, when I was saying like the clients that we had with startups and small, it's like taking a small startup client from your sourcing agency and putting them into your web agency. It's like you don't really make money on either side. So we just need to focus on getting really good at the sourcing side. Yeah. And now we work with some pretty amazing clients.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. It's like the most wild, I don't know, products that you've just looked at and be like, this isn't going to work or something, and it's like exploded or just anything, just something unique or...
So we did, you know Bush? Adult toys?
I think I've heard of them.
So 2 dudes, they came to us and they were blowing up. I think it was lockdown, you know, there was a lot of self-love during ISO. And they were in the right place, right time. And they were doing really well. And what they had was an off-the-shelf product that they branded and they were selling. And they came to us and we knew nothing. And we spent like 4 or 5 months of helping them develop and manufacture this vibrator called Her Majesty. Yeah. And it was by, you know Abby Chatfield?
No.
She's I think she was on Big Brother, one of those shows, Bachelor. But yeah, we ended up designing this sex toy. And it fucking went nuts. And I was like, it sold heaps and heaps. Like it was in Cardi B's film clip for WAP, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know they spent a lot of money on that. Because you can't advertise sex toys. Yeah. You got to be real subtle with them. Yeah. And then from there, we kind of became the experts in sex toys. And I remember one time I walked into my boardroom, and we just had a meeting with a client who was wanting to do sex toys. And there was just like butt plugs and vibrators and all this shit laid out on the table. And I was like, oh, this is like not what I thought I'd be doing. It was later, man, I'm like, this is a bit wild, isn't it?
Man, honestly, like you would see some crazy shit, like all these different products.
It all works, man. There's, I can't tell you it because we're halfway through processing it, but we get a lot of OnlyFans people who then want to start making products as well. Like, I'll tell you where I see the future of what we do moving to, and I think what I see e-commerce, and it's all going to be influencers who have brands or they're at the front of brands, right? Yeah. Because advertising is getting a lot more competitive. Yeah. People buy from people that they like. Yeah. So, you know, a really good example is like if there's let's say 2 types of influencers. There's the girl who posts her bikini photos every day and 8% of followers are horny men. Yeah. And then there's the girl who's fashion and there's nothing wrong with that either. But and she monetizes it through OnlyFans. And then there's the other girl who does, you know, she posts photos of like skincare routines and everything else. And 8% of her followers are women, right? And they trust her, they believe in her. So when she decides to come out with a product that's hers, people are going to buy it, right? And she's going to have that brand equity straight away. So the way that I see kind of things changing is it's going to be, I think, a bit more competitive to just open a brand or drop ship a product. People want to, and because the cost of marketing is so high as well, you know, Facebook's gone up through the roof. The cost to acquire customers moves so much that unless you have a really big ticket item, it's going to be really hard to make money. That these avenues through these channels of influencers if they do $1 million in sales, you're not spending $500,000 on acquisition costs. Yeah. It's costing you zero, right? And you give them 20 or 30% of the company or whatever it might be. Yeah. And I think that's where the future will be. There'll be so many brands that are run by influencers or that they'll have a stake within it as well. Look at Prime with Logan Paul and KSI. Man. 100 million units in a year.
Perfect example.
They only own 20% each.
Yeah.
But I'd be happy with 20%. Anyone would be happy with 20%.
Are they only
20% each? Yeah.
No.
And then it's these guys behind it who do it all, right? 100%.
I did not know that.
But 100 million units, let's say they sell for $2.50 each, 250 mil rev. Use a multiplier of 4. It's $1 billion business. They earn 20%.
They're flying.
$200 million.
Yeah, they're flying. The way they're going, like even... It was pretty wild. Like, I don't know. For me, I was just looking at it like, okay, I don't know how they feel, but he's like the WWE, and then he's just signed with
crushing it, man. He's just...
if I was the WWE, I'd be a little bit mad, but he's crushing it.
I was flying from LA to Dubai to get back to Melbourne, and Logan was actually on my flight.
Oh, wow.
And he was sitting 2 seats behind me. And even though he might say dumb shit and he might not be the most popular person, that man has the hardest work ethic I've ever seen. I was sitting there, I was drinking a bit of champagne, I was having a good time. And then I look back and this dude has his phone mounted like that, his laptop up, and he's huge. And he's just like slapping his keyboard. He's working this whole flight. I felt bad. I got my laptop out and I started working as well. I was just like, and you got to give it to him. It's all work ethic. He's got that personality as well. But, that's all it is. He works his ass off all the time. He's just always on the go.
Man, I don't know if you've seen him in the WWE. He looks like a natural.
Yeah, he is. Man. I saw that when he jumps off the top rope and just, it's wild, isn't it?
I was looking at that. He's insane. But yeah, it's honestly prime perfect example, man. Like I can't believe what they're doing. Like that is just insane.
And you can do that on a micro scale, right? You can do that with an influencer who has 100,000 followers, right? It doesn't need to be in the millions. It's just as long as they have a really good following and as long as they believe in the brand and they have that input, then it's just about building products around them that they will use and promote.
That's crazy. How have you been finding like your journey as an entrepreneur? Because a lot of people, I'm sure you're dealing with it all the time.
Yeah.
You're meeting new entrepreneurs every day. Like, what's some advice for people that could be listening?
Don't let your ego get in the way. I think I did that. I did a poor job of that at one point. We had all that success overnight and I thought I had it all worked out. I was like, this is easy from here. You've got the nice office. You've got, I was able to, like I said, I hired a lot of managers. I'd sit in my office and I was fucking lost. I'd be looking at spreadsheets all day, not knowing what to do. I was lost within my own business. I didn't know my staff well. But that was my ego. Like I wanted to think that my job was to sit at the top and to not, to have people do everything for you. And then, it's meant to be this easy thing, but it's not. Like, it's, you got to want to, there's no job too big or too small within your business, right? Like I'm wearing many hats at the moment still and I like it. But at that point, it's like, I was like, no, your company's at this size, you should only be doing this. And that's where I fucked up, I think. And it cost us a lot of money as well because I had no understanding of what was happening within the business. So my advice is, don't be scared to say yes and try things. Like that's my biggest thing. Like a good example is I've got 2 types of clients and I can give you an example of, and I know which one will be successful and I know which one won't. The one that will be successful is the one who just wants to commercialize the product, to get customer feedback and then to create the next one and to constantly move and grow. The other one who is the person who takes 5 times as long to develop the product because they're worried about it being perfect and they ask you 1,000 questions along the journey and they're really unsure of every step they go through.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that if that's your personality type, but to be honest, you're less likely to succeed because you're so stuck in your way and you're stopping yourself from progressing.
Yeah.
You need to be comfortable in being uncomfortable and not knowing everything. And you need to want to just commercialize and get some runs on the board, get that feedback, and then turn that into that next version. You hear a lot of tech people say, if you're not embarrassed of your first version of your product, you've launched too late. It's the same with a physical product. It's not any different, right? Like your customers will understand if you put out there like, hey, let's say you ship your product and you survey every customer and say, hey, we're really excited to work on version 2. Can I get some feedback from you? They'll be understanding that maybe the first product might not be perfect, but it's also when you sit there and you analyze something so long, of course you're going to see the negatives in it as well.
It's true.
So just get into it, jump into it.
Yeah, man. Like even just taking it back to like myself, like I remember I had a lot of product. I started off as a real estate agency, but I had this box, which my brother accidentally threw out in the office of like my first like couple years of how our branding was and everything. It was fucking bad.
Horrible, wasn't it?
So bad.
You look back and you go, oh.
Oh man, but it was insane. And even like I remember it, but nobody, obviously no one will know. But just looking at the differences, it's bloody wild, man. So I think a lot of people are just insecure, like they're trying to perfect that first product. And it's just like, man, like just put it out, like just get some sales.
Think of the example I gave you, those Bush guys, right? They bought an off-the-shelf product and labeled, packaged it differently. Once they had traction, they invested that money into building the next product where they had that feedback, right? So yeah, I think that, you know, don't let your ego get in the way and be comfortable in being uncomfortable would be the best advice I can give.
How have you found, like, even the last 12 to 24 months, like obviously going through, so last year was fucking tough, like as a year, interest rates going up, businesses obviously pulled back a lot, media throwing a lot around the recession word, heightened. You obviously now, you've started a few other kind of businesses. Like what was going on?
I think it was pretty bad for us. Like we were losing 6 figures a month at one point because we just couldn't get it right. You know, clients were, like you said, pulling back money, and we weren't servicing clients well. And I was like, I got rid of all my management team. And I threw myself into the business, and I was leading the AM team. I was there every day. I was working night and day, and I needed to, right? That's what the business needed of at that time. It was pretty stressful, man. Like it was, you know, Ellie and I would catch up and we'd work almost every weekend trying to figure this shit out of how to get things moving the needle even 1% during that time. But, you know, to our credit, we're just positive people, I think, you know, and we didn't let it stop us from just kind of, you know, maybe what's Warren Buffett's saying? Be greedy when people are fearful and fearful when people are greedy. Yeah. You know, there is a lot of fear out there, and for us, you know, we just know what we need to do to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And I think the one thing that we moved into recently that's kind of helped us is we've started tendering, so going for government tenders to supply just a whole bunch of consumables. And those are long-term contracts. They're assured things. The government's always going to pay you. They're good for it. Yeah. So that was a way that during this time we've been able to kind of de-risk, I guess, our business a little bit. That if we lose some of those clients that, you know, were big for us, at least we've got that revenue being made up somewhere else. The other part was we moved into diversifying our offering. So like I said, I was so focused on this is all we do. We help source and manufacture products, nothing else. And now we do design, we do industrial design, we have the course, we have another service offering where we help the initial stage of a client. So we set them up with a supplier, we hand over the relationship, we get everything like audited and set up for them as well. So by diversifying kind of our offering, it kind of allowed us to also make up some of that loss in revenue we felt from people pulling away and pulling back. Yeah. But, you know, just, I don't know, we just kind of pushed through.
How were you mentally and everything?
It's a good question. I think I've got a really good team around me. I'm not just talking about like my staff, but my mentor. Ali's almost like my mentor as well in some ways. You know, I've got a life coach at the moment, and she's amazing. And part of it, she said to me, is like, think of the idols that you have in your life and who you want to be like. And I told Ali this the other day, like he is an idol of mine. So he's not just my business partner, but he's an idol because he's so headstrong in what he does. And he's so confident in what he does. And he's so positive about everything. And he sees the opportunity that even during those hard times, his belief and his energy was enough to kind of keep me going as well. And then, like I said, I've got great friends. I've got a good balance between everything as well. So mentally, it was just kind of, there were some tough days. And there's some days saying, how the fuck can we still not get this right? But then once you have a good call with him and he's saying, hey, let's work on it this weekend, and you do something that actually changes that, and you can see that outcome, it kind of builds that momentum. You know, he was pretty down at one point as well, but, you know, yesterday we were talking actually, funny enough, and he's just saying like, life's good, everything's good. So it's like, you know, things are back on track, but you got to go through the pain a little bit, and you got to kind of, we were saying this before we jumped on here. It's not smooth sailings. It's not like everything's easy. It's not like, you know, you almost don't believe that the entrepreneur says, yeah, everything just worked out well and it went my way. It's like, you know, we ate shit at the start, and then we had a bit of success, and then we ate shit again, and it was our own doing as well. And now we're in a good spot, but who knows what the future has for us as well.
It's true. Like even use myself, like last year was like, every year I've been in business, I feel like it's just been this step.
Yeah.
Where really kind of things, it's been tough, but like growth wise, I've just been on this like great little like steps. And then last year came, and obviously I threw in where I grabbed a portion of the business and moved that on, and there was a lot of that. And even myself, it was tough.
How did you go?
It was tough. It was like it was probably the toughest year I've ever gone through. A lot of like chuck in like pretty much going like and putting a lot into Web3 to start building out and really focus on that. And that obviously that crashed pretty hard.
Yeah.
So, still understanding that, this space is where I want to be long term. It's just obviously having to just push through that.
It's a grind.
Yeah, and then like just everything. It was really difficult, and mentally, I felt like I lost myself.
Yeah,
I really did. I lost myself for a period of 3 to 6 months.
Just
I wasn't myself.
Yeah,
it wasn't me. I wasn't, in a sense, like I was waking up every day. I didn't really feel happy in the sense of I had to do it. Like everything I felt like it was a lot.
Yeah.
Like it was just a lot. Everything I had
just
to go
trying to get through.
Yeah, I had to just get through. And it was, and so like now, I honestly, I've been saying like bottom scene, we're flying and we're on, like we're ready to go. But it's just like, I feel like it was the most lessons that I've ever gone through. It was so much was masked.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there was so much masked, and then all of a sudden, a lot got shown to me, and a lot of lessons were learned, and you take these lessons now to your next journey, and
exactly right. Like you become resilient, right? It's not like your problems don't get worse or better. They're probably the same, if not they get worse the bigger you get.
Yeah.
But your appetite to deal with them gets better, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember when, those TVs that I told you about at the start, the school ones.
Yeah.
I remember I thought the volume wasn't loud enough on them, and I was fucking having a meltdown. I was like calling the factory. I'm like, this shit isn't loud enough. And it was absolutely fine, but I was freaking out. You know what I mean? And like now it's like there's challenges every week. We've got 150 active clients, and the difference is I don't expect things to go perfect, and when they do, that's fucking great.
That's insane. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's how you deal with them when they don't go perfect, right? And as a leader, you need to set that tone, right? You need to show people that it's okay. One of the things we have, right, that my mentor showed me is we have, and this will work in almost any business. So this is hopefully a good tip. We have a traffic light, right? A gold traffic light with little diamonds on it. And what happens is whenever you have a problem in a project, so for us, when we have a problem in a project, so that might be the client's not responding, it could be the factory's delayed, it could be the sample's not correct, you write it on a Post-it note and you stick it up on the traffic light. Then at the end of every week, we take them down, we categorize the problems, and we talk about them as a team, and then we find a solution to them, right?
That's good.
So the culture used to be within Sourci, if you have a problem, you fucking sort it out, right? That's, and that was the thing. It never got back to me. So that's why I was saying I didn't know when I was saying everything was good. It's because someone's telling me all good, but it's also because the managers were saying, hey, figure out your problems yourself. And that's anything that goes wrong in your business sits with you. So that's 100% my fault. Now what we do is we have a heartbeat every day. And in the heartbeat, we talk about our red lights and then we talk about our greens, anything that's going well. So we changed the culture to going from, hey, you keep your problems to yourself, that we celebrate the problems.
Yeah.
We celebrate them. I want them up on that golden traffic light so that we can take them down and then we can fix them for good, right? So it's like those lessons is the resilience that you build of like, it's okay to have challenges. Literally there's not much that can happen within and you think about manufacturing, it's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
Heaps of money on the line. There's really nothing that can go that wrong that you can't fix.
Yeah.
Because we have the processes to make sure we pick it up before it becomes a problem that's too bad to fix, right? But if the culture was, I don't want to hear your problem, and then it gets delivered to the client, and that's when we find out that it's meant to be black and it's green, that's when it becomes the real problem. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's wild, man. Like even, I'm just glad that you've been able to just even open up, because a lot of the time, people they just mask that there are a lot of issues, and a lot of people that are looking to get into business just literally think it is that just steps going forward. So that's crazy. How have you found like your culture, and what else have you kind of implemented?
So I used to think culture was just rah-rah. Like, oh, we've got such a strong culture. What does that even mean, right? Like, oh, what, you do Friday night drinks. I think culture comes from your values, and I think it's the energy of the business, right? And I can hand on my heart say we've got the best culture in the world. I've got people who love coming to work every day. I've got people that are happy every day. I've got people that feel supported and cared for. And that's because that's what our values instill as well. So I think, from where it was a year ago where we had really high staff turnover, like being just transparent. During that time of I didn't know what was happening. We had managers who told me everything's good, account managers who would quit every one a month would leave, and then we're rehiring and we're trying to hand them over to some new projects, and it was a mess, right? And I couldn't figure it out. And really, culture comes from being cared for and supported. And then yes, the perks are, we had Super Bowl Monday and we had fried chicken, and that we have an espresso martini tap and a beer tap in the kitchen, and we've got all these sick office, cool rooftop, all that other stuff. But it's also that the fact of I know my staff, anyone can come and sit with me and tell me about what's happening in their life. And I'll actually, I'll listen, I'll care. Or if they have something going wrong, that they know that they come and talk to me and that they have that time. And that is instilled from me down as well, right? The culture starts and stops with me. It's my energy, it's my presence, it's the way that I hold myself in that office. And that translates into how people interact with each other. Like I said, integrity is one of our values. I know that everyone in that office has integrity, that if something happened in a project, yes, they would come and ask me what the right thing to do is, but I know that they would know what the right thing to do is. And I think that's really important, right? You want someone who shares your values. I think that's where the culture comes from.
Have you changed up the way potentially you've hired or anything like that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I definitely ask about the culture of the company. I think hiring is really hard in the sense of anyone can interview well. But I like to think my gut instinct's right sometimes, but other times it's been off. But really it's you want someone who buys into the company and someone who cares about being there and the outcomes, and they're not, I don't know about you, but we had a guy recently just turned down, we made him an offer to be our accounts director, and he just didn't want to come to the office at all. It's you're meant to be leading an account management team who come to the office. How's that going to work? You know what I mean? And we went through 3 rounds of interviews for him to tell me that he wanted to work from home full time. Should have probably brought that up at the start, but that's my fault as well. But so I think
we had that at the
I had that at the start. Wasting his time, my time. No, but so if it's a technical role, I'll get the person who's meant to. So I still interview everyone we hire. But I only interview them from a cultural fit and to get a feel for who they are. If they're a production manager, I still get my head of production to interview them. So, but still, I feel we've got it right. We haven't had anyone leave in a very long time now.
Amazing.
Which is, and apparently, I can't remember the stats, 30% of people look for a job in January. And that's the highest part of staff turnover is at the start of the year, because New Year, people, New
resolution.
Fucking hate my job, I'm out of here. But no one's left, so everyone must be happy. But yeah, I've got some really great relationships with my team now. And, I feel they can come to me about anything. And I feel I even get them involved in the hiring a little bit. I have junior staff to interview who their boss will be to kind of say that they've got a bit of buy-in so that they get a feel from both ends as well.
That's actually really good.
Yeah.
I think it's always an interesting process. They definitely got everybody in the office. It's funny. It didn't really enforce. I think is everyone just said And I think it works. It flows better. A lot of people 100%. Are starting to milk it. Throughout the last couple of years, I was asking everybody, even just people I'd meet or clients or whatever it is, what are you doing? What's going on? Are you more efficient? Blah, blah, blah. And I'd like to just get all different answers. Some would say, oh, yeah, I'm more efficient. Others would say, yeah, I'm doing fuck all.
Legit though. So my partner at the time, she still works from home. And she does work hard. She does do a full day's work. But I know also other times she fucks around a little bit. And everyone does, right? And don't get me wrong, in summer it's probably even worse because you go down to the beach for your lunch break for an hour. We still do 2 days a week working from home, but there's some team members who come in. I'm in there 5 days. I can't work from home. I distract myself. I can't be left alone. I need to be making sure I'm kept busy. But it's good. So everyone's back at the office for you.
All moving forward, and so I kind of can't complain, I guess.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. I think our work's very collaborative. So it's it doesn't work. I don't get how you're meant to, product and production managers, they sit next to each other, probably talk 50 times a day.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Slack someone?
Bad.
Oh, do you have 10 minutes for a Google Meet?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's just not efficient in that sense. I get it if you're a developer and you just sit there in a room and you just coding all day. But yeah, different roles.
100%. And how's your next 12 months looking? Do you have anything else in the works, or do you feel like you've got enough and you've just got to build on it?
Never enough. You know, we did a strategy week at the start of the year, and we kind of set some goals, and we've been really ambitious in growth for ages, and that is detrimental sometimes, because if you don't have the foundations built properly, you're just going to grow. And we did this. We didn't have the foundations built properly. We brought on 300 clients, and then everything turned to shit because things weren't working the way they should. So our goal isn't to go nuts this year, but we have opened some new, I guess, avenues for business for us as well. So, like I said, we're doing the tenders.
Yeah.
We're now about to get into big retailers. Nice. So some really big retailers for some really core products. So we brought someone on board. I'm about to hopefully bring on a second person, and their job is just meeting up with these retailers, the buyers, and we're going to get into hopefully some really significant ones. And we're about to get our first purchase order, and this purchase order is like fucking huge,
mad,
which is great for us, right? So we're working on kind of, because what happens is, right, we've developed over like maybe 500 to 800 products over the last, maybe even more actually, over the last 5 years. And we'll develop them for a client, the client will order it, and they'll never come back. And then we've got this amazing factory that we've worked with, that we've got a good relationship with. And we were like, okay, well, what should we do? How do we leverage all this data, all these products, all this, all this work that we have? And we don't take our clients' products and put them into the retailers, but we go to the factory, well, what else can you do? And we start developing products with them. So that's an avenue where we're starting to explore, and we're really starting to push to get into like bigger retailers, more consistent work that way as well. Tenders is a big part of our future as well. And then the agency, we've got some really cool clients coming on board. We're starting to work with some really cool influencers as well. We've just worked with Kathy Evans from Maths. So we've just done her first sunglasses line, working with a few people from hopefully Love Island and some other stuff as well. We're doing all like the Aussie influencers, sports stars, all that kind of stuff. So some fighters from the UFC. So those things are kind of coming our way now a little bit. Like we've built a good reputation. We're just getting introduced to people constantly, which is great.
When you say the agency, like what do you guys focus on? Exactly.
Sourci, the agency. So it's
okay. Sorry.
So if you look at what we do, right?
I thought you meant there was another.
No.
Got
so if you look at Sourci, there's like Sourci the agency, then there's Sourci retail, then there's Sourci products or tenders, and then there's we're starting to it's kind of becoming that size now where we're starting to break it off into separate sections, which is really exciting.
It's insane.
This is the best it's ever been in terms of like the opportunity, and like you can get excited. It doesn't feel like that much of a grind anymore. Yeah. I mean, we've just got our first warehouse out in Moorabbin. My face is mixed up. Close enough. We're building out our first showroom, which is sick. Like it's all kind of it's fun. I'm really happy with where things are at.
That's insane, man.
Months, yeah.
Where do you see I don't know, an opportunity for I don't know, like even just influencers or sports stars? Like where are they going? Like I feel like a few are doing drinks. Like a lot of them are going there.
Hey, like, drinks work. I know there's not much money in it, right? It's more like the uninspired, unemployed guys.
Yeah. Was
it $52 million?
Yeah.
Wild, right?
Yeah.
This insane. The problem. I love Australia, right? It's a tiny market. Yeah. It's just a small market. Think of it like this. There's 80 million people that live in California. There's 27 million people that live here.
Yeah.
So that's one state in the US is 3 times our population. So this is a good market to kind of understand how business works. We're very professional in the way that we operate, but the US is where you want to be.
Yeah.
So my advice for anyone is first off, look to start here but expand there. But those type of businesses, like it needs to align to your values, right? So it's like if you're a sports star, you're not going to do makeup. Yeah. You're not going to do homewares and crockery. You know what I mean? It's not going to make sense. So you got to know your audience, and you got to be able to monetize that audience by selling them good quality products. That's the other part as well. They will buy, like merch is such a simple one, right? You think about like the Nelk Boys or like Logan Paul and stuff. They sell that much merch because people want to buy their brand, right? Yeah. But like if they start bringing out replenishable products like a skincare product or Like for instance, I was thinking I want to meet Jeff, which is Logan's manager. I actually met him in Dubai, but I never swapped details. But I'm going to try catch him because I think like for them, like a good shaving kit, like a men's grooming kit would be something where it would make sense, where it would fit the audience. It's something that he would use. So it needs to be aligned as like, does it make sense to who your followers are? But I think that's the thing that these influencers are sleeping on is they get paid $5,000 to do a post. That post generates $50,000 for another business. That could be their business.
Bad. So even like, for example, let's just use Logan and KSI. Are they probably using a company like you guys that like just like, hey,
No, great. So I think, so Jeff, their manager his manager would be kind of the guy behind doing all the deals. But like, for instance, like I said with...
You're in a perfect position, man. Just like, hey, bang.
That's what I mean. So like with Prime, they're only own 20% each, right?
Yeah.
So like the same thing is for us is like what products you want to bring out, let's partner together. And we've got about 4 of these deals in the works with some influencers at the moment where we're owning half to maybe a little bit more, less of these companies.
Yeah, well, when are you thinking of launching?
I'm sure I can talk. I don't know if we can talk about it. We've got a skincare company that's coming out. I'll leave it at that. So we're doing the supply chain part of it. We have the biggest events company in Melbourne doing the marketing side of it, so they own a portion of it. And then we have a really well-known influencer who's the face of it, right? So it's like you think about bringing those 3 things together. We're operations, then you've got sales and marketing, and then you've got the PR, the face, the brand, right? So for us, the next 12 months, we want to see how many of these opportunities that we can find.
It's crazy.
Because
I like it.
That's where I think the biggest growth will come from.
100%.
You'll be able to, at the event, there'll be an activation. But then for us, they know that the supply chain's really well taken care of as well, which is really hard for some of these brands to actually manage.
Yeah. How have you gotten yourself into these positions with these people? Would you put it down?
Alcohol.
Yeah.
Nah, maybe a little bit.
A little bit. You always.
Hey, I was so shit at networking and marketing for so long. Yeah. So I did a terrible job. It took us a while. We started getting introduced to a few different people, and all of a sudden you start going to like Leo, for instance. All of a sudden he puts on that lunch and then
shout out to Leo.
Shout out, yeah, exactly right. We wouldn't know each other otherwise.
Yes, 100%. And he's like insane because out of anyone in Melbourne, he's the only one that tries to bring people together. So 100%. And we're always shit. I'm like, yeah, Leo, you're the best, and then no one does anything. But like, shout out to him. I've
got a mate who owns like a digital talent management agency, and he's connected. So like he's brought me to a few things, and then I've gone to a few lunches, and then all of a sudden, Melbourne's a small place. Yeah. So it's like once you start getting known for these things, it's like now we've got footy stars who come in once a week to like work on products together and some influencers and everything else. But I think it's also like you kind of go after what you want. Like you got to pitch yourself a little bit as well. Like, I don't mind DMing a dude on LinkedIn saying, do you want to get a coffee kind of thing? Like we're at that point where it helps that it says that we won Entrepreneur of the Year for distribution manufacturing, right? Like we're kind of at the top of the game when it comes to that. So people kind of want to work with us when they see that. So I think it's just leveraging what you have in your network. And, I used to hate kind of putting myself out there because, you don't want to feel like a kid being like, hey man, you want to get a coffee or something like that. But it's the best thing you do. And to be honest, I've got time for people who do it for me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? As long as you're ambitious and you're young, I'll give someone an hour of my time. I don't care. Because you don't know who they know or what might come of it. And at the end of the day, even if you just help them, you feel good about it as well.
Yeah, 100%. I always feel like that's always been me. I've always just like, if someone's reached out or talk to them, if someone to catch up with them. Because like you said, you don't know who they know or you don't know what they're doing. You don't know anything. Yeah. And one thing, I've never been afraid to reach out to people, but another layer to that has been, I listened to Gary Vee, and he always said that he never reached out to Kobe Bryant. And how he was like, fuck, like there was one person that he wished he could meet. Yeah. So ever since then, I'm like, you
don't want to have that regret, huh?
Yeah. So I'm like, fuck. So you know what? Like just keep trying to connect because the networks, man.
What about you? How do you network? Do you just throw out a DM?
Yeah, throw the DM out. Like you said, like, man, you're always meeting someone through somewhere, a party or
parties how hard. You're getting the right guests, you're getting the right booth. It's all good.
Yeah, you're always somehow running into someone. But yeah, like that's networking's huge, man. And the podcast helps, obviously.
Yeah, good, huh?
Yeah, it helps a lot. Like, obviously, I know you, but there's a lot of people that I meet for the first time, and then we walk out of here like we're fucking best mates, and fucking we're now like we talk every day. I'm like, hey, you know, it's just like it's wild.
I think there's you meet people that you click with as well, and I think, you know, like there's some people I've met in the last 6 months that I click with, and it's like that instant kind of like, you're not best friends, but do you know what I mean? Like you see the world the same. You talk about business, you talk about life, you talk about everything else. You share the same values, and you end up doing so much shit together so quick. Like one of them is like, you know, we've already started working on a few brands. It's like you things just kind of naturally progress because you like the way you interact.
Yeah, man.
And that's the thing. It's like when you start meeting people like that and it clicks really easily, that's where all the opportunities come from. And then they're happy. Like one of my mates, he's introduced me to so many people already, just because he knows that I'm a good reflection of him as well, right?
100%.
And you do the same for people that you respect.
100%. Like I feel like us in Australia, we don't do it enough. Like there's that tall poppy syndrome.
It's 100% true.
Yeah, compared to like America, like they're just I'll introduce you to this person. We do this, we do that. Like it's wild, man.
We need to get better at it, right?
Yeah,
and I think
100%.
like what we're doing in the groups, like I said, Melbourne's small, but like these lunches, catching up with people, like obviously it's hard to find the time sometimes as well, but like so much good comes out of it. Get in the same room.
Always, man. So we definitely, I say we got to get another one going. Like
we're due for an hour, yeah.
100%. I reckon I just got to bite the
I'm
bullet.
going to leave it to you. Hey,
you
guys saw it here first. Who's responsible?
I reckon next couple months, 100%. I promise. So I'm going to do it because I always say, thank you, Leo. You're amazing. You're the best. And then like, you know, we don't. So, but Jerry, like, thank you so much for jumping on, man. Like,
thanks for having me.
This was really good. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Like you were an open book. You were vulnerable. You provide like a lot of value, man. And
good.
And you're just a good laugh. So thank you, man.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.